So with my recently acquired free time, I decided I wanted to catch up on the Arrowverse TV shows. Hey, it was this or old Disney Channel shows, because I heard it recently came to something approaching a conclusion. And I figured, hey, I got free time, might as well. Quick aside before I begin, the last video I did got taken down for copyright. I'm fighting it, but there's nothing much I can do other than try. Anyway, the Arrowverse refers to a series of TV shows and spin-offs that started with the show Arrow, obviously, which is an adaptation of Green Arrow. And for the most part, the shows are fine. They're not doing anything particularly great, but they also don't tend to do things that are really that bad. And this is increasingly becoming my thing on this channel, to talk about things that are, yeah, okay, mostly because really smart people tend to talk about things that are really good, really dumb people like to talk about things that are really bad, and I'm neither one, so let's talk about what's sort of average. But yeah, the shows tend to be fine. The characters tend to have unique voices. The pacing tends to be alright. The action is serviceable. It can be overly woke at times, and the writing can suffer and be kind of cringy because of that. And the lighting can be a bit flat, like it's clearly a CW drama. But I think Movie Bob said it best when he said, the CW, the home of okay television. So let's start this journey with The Flash. This is probably my favorite of the CW Arrowverse stuff. I just feel like it hits the right balance of, CW drama, superhero show, and taking itself the right amount of seriously. So if this is my favorite, why did I quit watching initially? Because the first 3 seasons are the same story 3 times. Barry thinks he's the fastest person alive. Turns out he isn't. Turns out he has to become that. Rinse and repeat for 3 seasons. And I just got super bored of that. I guess this was a common criticism because they seem to be reacting hard against that in this 4th season. With the villain being your standard chess master type villain, which I don't tend to like this type of villain, but it's only specifically for the reason that when you're writing an intelligent character, that character's intelligence is fundamentally limited by the writer's intelligence. So, things that the character says that are meant to come across as, what a brilliant observation, boil down to, that was kind of stupid. They try and get into this guy's backstory, DeVos, the thinker, in case you're wondering. And even in the backstory, okay, the thing that convinces his wife to get on board with his plan to make everyone stupid through purple science stuff, it doesn't matter, isn't a logical argument. It's something emotionally distressing that happens to her.
I just don't think that.
Maurice.
And I feel like that's kind of an issue with the character. We're told that he's super smart, but he does and says really stupid things. Like, I get that this is supposed to be some sort of psychohistory sort of thing, where he can determine the future by mathematical whatever. But, whatever. This is at least a different kind of antagonism than we've faced in previous seasons, and that is refreshing. I do also enjoy the addition of Ralph Dibny, the elongated man. I find his sleazy private eye shtick sort of appealing at the beginning, and his gradual character growth into learning to be a better person throughout the season to be satisfying, if not exactly great. Again, the shows are mostly just okay. One random thing I noticed while watching this season is they make a weird amount of references to Marvel Comics.
Excelsior!
And I'm just like, so Marvel exists in this universe? Given how much of Marvel canon is based on its reaction to DC, I gotta wonder, does DC also exist? I don't know. I mean, granted, this sells the idea that you're dealing with a bunch of geeks, because geeks make comic book references and movie references and shit. That's just what they do.
Oh my god, you're like the Incredible Hulk.
So, I mean, this is, like, the intention behind it is that, but if you wanted to, you could really unravel the entire world building just by the fact that they mentioned that Spider-Man 2 is a movie.
With a madman whose innovations are warping his brain. Have you not seen Spider-Man 2?
No.
So, Sony made Spider-Man 2 because Marvel had to sell off its movie rights because of the crash of the speculator boom in the 90s, which was started by the first editions of Superman and Batman selling for so much at auction, leading people to think that any first edition would be valuable in the future. But Superman and Batman are actual people in this world. So were there 30s comic book characters based on these guys too, or what? Again, it doesn't matter. It's about selling the fact that you're dealing with geeks. And that's just sort of a weird thing I noticed throughout this season. Harrison Wells is back, though. The same version of him that was in the second season, And his character arc is the exact same as Gunther from Futurama.
What about your super intelligence?
When I had that, there was too much pressure to use it. All I want out of life is to be a monkey of moderate intelligence who wears a suit. That's why I've decided to transfer to business school.
Yeah, the monkey. And I am not kidding, that is literally the exact arc. I'm too smart, now I'm too dumb, now I'm just smart enough. But yeah, overall this season was fine. I didn't care for the villain because I just don't like this kind of villain. To me it looks like if you got super intelligence, you'd probably realize pretty soon that your ideas about how everything was better before technology came and corrupted us was wrong. You'd probably realize, oh, global extreme poverty has been cut in half since 2010, life expectancy is up, less people die in wars now than ever, that sort of thing fairly quickly rather than becoming more cynical. Which brings me to another problem with the villain, this kind of villain. It always tends to be logic, rawr, I don't get emotions, rawr, rawr.
There is logic in what he says.
Look, logical people get emotions. They're probably better at it than you. They can just also reason themselves out of an emotional state. But yeah, okay. Synopsis on the season. It was mostly fine. It was a nice change of pace from the previous 3 seasons, which all felt weirdly similar. Also for reference, Barry and Iris finally get hitched in this season. Your wedding reception was attacked by Nazis. At least that's a cool story to tell your children, right? Oh wait. So yeah, that brings me into Season 5. The big kind of gimmick for this season is...
I'm your daughter, Nora, from the future.
Yeah. So we saw Nora here show up a few times in the previous season, making like little cameos, saying hi to everybody pretty much. And initially you're supposed to just think, this is just some weird girl who does weird things. But then there's that reveal, which, I don't know, I thought it was kind of obvious, but again, I'm a bad judge on this sort of thing. And I gotta say, I've been avoiding other people's opinions about this, so I have no idea what the general consensus is on this character. But I really like her. I don't know, to me she's about as believable as a time-traveling person who can run at the speed of light can be. And when I say believable, I mean that in the sense that her emotional state and such is believable, and her character motivations are very believable. It's time travel. If you think you understand it, you probably don't.
You guys will not get me into a discussion of time travel logic. I would rather chew broken glass.
And I'm fine with him playing fast and loose with this sort of thing just to tell a good story. And I like this season a lot. It's probably my favorite season of The Flash. The major theme of this season seems to be legacy, if the last episode's name didn't give that away. It's one thing to, be the person who creates a legacy, but it's another thing to be the person who lives up to that legacy. In the comic books, this was done after Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was a huge crossover event that was supposed to reset everything, but that didn't turn out well. Whatever, I'm not here to explain comic books. Go listen to Movie Bob explain it if you want. But the relevant part is, in that event, the Flash died. And then the subsequent Flash comic books ended up following the character of Wally West.
I can at least learn the Flash's secret identity. I have no idea who this is.
The redheaded one, not the black one. And most of his stories ended up being a lot about living up to the legacy of the Flash. And I feel like this season has a lot in common with that. The antagonist this time is a serial killer called Sadia who just kills metahumans. Both the protagonist and the antagonist, you end up being just, well, little girls trying to live up to their father's legacy. Again, the difference is that the heroes tend to take the right lessons from life events, whereas the villains don't. In this case, understanding that whereas your parents and I guess your children aren't going to be perfect, they're going to at least be trying, and not to let yourself be poisoned by resentment that something didn't actually happen. Again, because I liked Nora so much, I really enjoyed her episode in the future, or her past. It's time travel again, it doesn't make sense. Where they're deliberately echoing the pilot episode.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Incoming call
from Mom.
Mom, come on. Oh.
That combined with the revelations that happen in the later episode totally gets you on board with her point of view. She's had two heroes in life, one the Flash, the other her dad, and her mom has been keeping the fact that those were the same people from her. That really gets me on board with her position. But again, I have a bias towards this kind of story. I just like stories about living up to the legacy previously established, and hey, we're in a glutton of those right now. Logan, Spider-Verse, Last Jedi. So if you'd fallen off the show and wondered, does it get any better? I would say yes. But again, I have a bias towards this kind of story. So...
Got me again, Flash!